Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the second panel of this afternoon, which is on interdisciplinary approaches to aging research. We're all members of the Aging Studies Research Group, and whilst we're connected with the Centre for Health and Wellbeing across the Life Course and Department of Health Sciences, we are drawn from across all disciplines across the university. I'm delighted that we're represented by four professors today, who are drawn from different disciplines. So we have Professor Joanna Bridger from Biosciences, Professor Fiona Verity from Social Work, Professor Christina Victor from Gerontology and Public Health, and Professor Howell Dong from Design. So you can see we're an excellent range of different disciplines. So our panel is going to work. Each panelist is going to speak for 5 to 6 minutes, and we should have 5 to 6 minutes for questions at the end. So with no further ado, I'm going to ask Joanna to lead us. Thank you.
Yeah. Slides coming. Thank you. Oh, me. Okay. Sorry, you can't see it very well. Yes, I'll try and control my slides. So I wanted to start today's panel by talking about cellular senescence. So these are the cells in our bodies that stop dividing and they become irreversibly arrested. Now you think that might be okay, they're not doing anything, they're just sitting there, but they're quite naughty cells. They send out chemicals out into the tissues and affect other cells. And here we have some senescent cells. So you can see the young cells. I don't know, these are from down the microscope in the laboratory. They're nice and long, elongated and thin. Middle-aged, they're starting to look a little bit rougher. And these are our cells in culture. And then you can see the old cells. They really don't look like the young cells anymore. They're not long and elongated. So we can look at these cells down the microscope and we can say, oh, that might be an old cell, but maybe it isn't. So we do have now in biology a whole range of markers that we look at to pick out old cells. One of the favorites, which is really easy to see, is this down the bottom. It's called sen beta-galactosidase, and it's a blue marker. It's not a brilliant marker. We need better biomarkers for aging, but we do have genes that get upregulated. One's called P21, another one's called P16. So these genes, their upregulation signifies when a cell is old and has become senescent. For the longest time, there's been a massive debate in the aging community about whether these cells, these cellular cells that are senescent, they're causing aging, because there was no direct proof until this experiment in 2016, where the top two mice, you can see, one looks quite rough at the back. Okay, this is a mouse model of a chronic aging illness, and the scientists decided that they would kill off the senescent cells as they arose in this model organism, and that's what happened. So when P16 got expressed, these cells committed suicide. And you can see down the bottom, these are, so the mouse that's looking really well is the mice that went through this experiment. And so they do look younger, their illness was ameliorated, and they lived 30% longer. So this was the direct proof that the community had been waiting for. So this is what happens with the senescent cells. So we have senescent cells. There are some benefits to having a senescent cell. So maybe it helps us escape cancer, but there's also quite a lot of evidence that they can cause cancer too. They're really important in wound healing, but also in the development, the modeling of an embryo. So that's why we have these senescent cells, but they're very detrimental in other tissues. And we end up with these chronic age-related illnesses caused by senescent cells. So can we kill these senescent cells in our own bodies? And that's what people are looking into researching at the moment, using these drugs that you might see on the internet called senolytics. They kill senescent cells, xenomorphics, or xenotherapeutics. So maybe they can halt the progression to senescence, or even some drugs are looking at reversing the senescent cells. But we have to be aware of the health and safety that if these cells have DNA mutations, that we're not then reversing them back into the body. So the idea would be that you could treat chronic age-related illnesses, or perhaps you can treat them all together when there's comorbidities. Also, cancer treatments end up creating senescent cells, and they can be then have a sort of another treatment with a senolytic to kill those senescent cancer cells in the body. So these drugs, there's a whole plethora of drugs that are in clinical trials at the moment that will be coming through to the clinic at some point. Some of these you will recognize, some of them you can buy on Amazon, but I don't think that's a great idea because it's about concentration. So there needs to be quite a lot of studies to get the concentrations right. So, so excuse me. So that's where I will leave my introduction to my work. Thank you.
Thank you, Joanna. Thank you.
It's not me, it's Fiona, isn't it?
Yes. Fiona.
Yeah, excuse me for a minute while I just come back into the circle, so I'll come. Yes, hello, I'm Fiona Verity, so thank you very much for having me here. When I was thinking about the topic, we're talking about interdisciplinary approaches to ageing research. My background is social work, and I've been doing a lot of work on integration between health and social care, and that's sort of, people might be aware of that, but kind of governments wanting things to work better across health and social care, and also putting the public, people's lived experience, right at the centre of whatever needs to be done and developed. So that's happening in practice and policy, and it's also happening in research. So we've been talking for a long time about we've got to work across disciplines. We can't be looking at things through one discipline lens and expect to understand the complexity of what's happening and therefore what might need to change and be improved. So with that in mind, I just want to tell a bit of a story about a research project I've been working on with colleagues in Wales. And it's a project where we have really come together as an interdisciplinary project. Right at the platform foundationally has been people's lived experience. It's been absolutely germane to everything we've done. So in the couple of minutes, I just want to give you a bit of a sense of that project, and then I'll come to the end and make some points again about interdisciplinary research. So the project's called ASSIST, that's the acronym. It stands for a preventative approach for access to a sustainable whole system pathway for older people with vision impairment. That's why we called it ASSIST, because otherwise it would be too much. But basically, 1.5 million people in the UK over 65 have a vision impairment. We were talking with older people with vision impairment leading up to this project, and people were talking about the fact that systems don't work well together. You can come and see someone, get diagnosed with a vision impairment. You are, according to government policy, you should have access to social services support. But the chances of that happening from assessment to getting the services, things fall down in all sorts of directions. So our project was looking at what can we do, what can be done to make the pathways work better for people with vision impairment. So I just want to imagine I've got a kaleidoscope. I just want to turn my kaleidoscope and just have a look at some of the issues that we found in our study. Okay, I'm going to turn in the kaleidoscope. So some quotes from people we spoke to in our qualitative interviews. An old woman with a vision impairment. I've had a wonderful marriage to a wonderful man, and he's not here now. I had to do something because I couldn't see to do anything. I couldn't even walk about in my own house. So I had to live for myself, and I wanted to be safe and as independent as possible. Okay, kaleidoscope turn, another person we spoke to. A gentleman showed me how to use the cane and took me on a couple of exercises. Took me on buses and on trains, so I was able to navigate well with the cane in areas that I knew. They also did a check on the house, that the house was okay for me and anything I needed altered in the house, sort of thing. So I wasn't bumping into things so much. Okay, kaleidoscope turn 3. The study was funded by Welsh Government, based in Wales, led by someone from an optometry department at Cardiff University. Welsh Government policy is replete with policy requirements about what people with vision impairment can expect. The sort of services and frameworks are all there. This is a quote from a service provider we interviewed. People could get the help more effectively, but it would depend on all those different service providers communicating with each other, really, because if they don't, then the link in the chain is going to fall apart, and people are not going to get that help or service they require. So I think different people over different services, they've got to be all coherent, so they all work together for one cause, for one platform. So our research was really about the problems about access and navigation of supports. The problems are well known, the policies there, what can be done to close those gaps. So our study highlighted that people need to know where to go for help, how to access the help that's there. The support services, as I said, they're fragmented. There's barriers with digital information. There's this kind of race to have more and more things provided in digital platforms. That's problematic. The stigma about visual impairment, inaccessible transport, urban environments that are harder to navigate. We had recommendations to address systemic inequalities, to increase the enablers that people can access services. Relationships are really crucial, so relationships with family, with carers, with people in communities, to keep them going for people with vision impairment. So our study, there's lots to our study. It's kind of being written out now and disseminated. But I think for me, being part of it, I don't think, because we wanted to know how to join a system that's fragmented, we couldn't do it if we just looked through the lens of one discipline, whether it be optometry or my area of social work. We had to come together. We had about 7 different disciplines working on the project, and as I said, we couldn't have done it without people with lived experience, and that was foundational. So I'm going to stop there, but it just really reinforced for me how to put the interdisciplinary.
Brilliant. Thank you, Fiona. Do you mind if I stand up now? And now, Christina?
Sorry.
Yeah.
I can't say, I'm Christina Victor, I'm Professor of Gerontology and Public Health, so I have 2 titles, but sadly only 1 salary, and I can't say anything sensible sitting down. Whether I can say anything sensible standing up remains to be seen. So, in my short time with you, I want to perhaps draw colleagues' attention to the strength of research in gerontology or ageing studies at Brunel. We're here, we have we don't have each college represented, but ageing research is strong at Brunel and distributed across the different colleges and departments. We have a strong research group, but I think sometimes because we're dispersed across the university, the expertise in critical mass sometimes flies under the radar. So I think it's something we should celebrate, and I really welcome the opportunity today to draw your attention, if you didn't know about it, how good my colleagues are and what a good group we are and what a long-standing group we are. I want to a little bit about the work of those of us who work in social gerontology focuses on a couple of aspects of ageing. So one of which is individual based, so at what point do I decide I'm an older person, or what point in time does society think I'm old? But there are also, there's the kind of work that I'm doing, because I have a public health background, is much more concerned about the influence of what we might call the social context, the wider social context influences ageing outcomes. So currently life expectancy in the UK is about 82 for women, about 78 for men-ish. That's the average. So we now take it for granted we will all live to grow old. If we'd been born 100 years ago, life expectancy was roughly 48. And it's still worth remembering that social determinants are very influential on determining who's going to get to grow old, who's going to have the privilege of growing old, and who isn't. So life expectancy for men is currently about 90-ish if you live in heart. For those of you who don't know where Hart is, it's sort of Fleet in Hampshire, and it's around 60 if you live in Blackpool. So the inequalities in a simple outcome like mortality are quite profound. So as a society, we think, well, growing old is kind of solved, but it isn't. So that's the kind of thing gerontologists are interested in. And the other area of work that I've been involved in, but my colleagues as well, we have lots of stereotypes about older people. Older people can't learn. Older people are a burden on society. They retire at 60, sit around with their feet up on the Costa del Sol, not contributing to our societies. We have lots of very negative stereotypes, which are both incorrect, but also have consequences in how perhaps older people think about themselves, but also how society responds to it. I'm sure some of you in the audience have had the misfortune to listen to me talking about my pet subject, which is around loneliness and isolation. Here is a stereotype whereby we think that loneliness is a problem of old age, and I thought that too, because we didn't bother to do any research on people who weren't over 65. And I think this is a very useful lesson for us as researchers, to not carry on asking the same question, but ask other ones. It wasn't until 2018 when the government, for whatever reason, decided to have a loneliness strategy, and that's a whole different discussion in on of itself. We did a survey that compared loneliness across different age groups from 18 to 90. And what do you find? Embarrassingly for a gerontologist, actually older people are the least lonely part of the population. The most lonely group are young people, young adults, kind of 16 to 24 age range. So this didn't make me get interested in young people. I'm just waiting for them to grow old and lonely. But I think there we are. All of our interventions, all of our thoughts about policies about loneliness had been focused on a particular group. And I think that is a very salutary lesson. And I won't go into any more, except that to remind us as academics, we need to question. Fiona's mentioned about research being interdisciplinary, and also mentioned the importance of engagement of those people we do research with. And I just want to take this opportunity to draw your attention to our Borg Older People's Reference Group. This was created in 2009 by my good colleagues Eleanor van den Heuvel and Mary Gilhooly. And this has underpinned the success, I think, of our group. It is worth reminding research leaders and deans and people, research infrastructure isn't just labs and bits of, I think, what social scientists call stuff, but actually for some disciplines it's really important to have that infrastructure of people who can support our research. And I'll conclude there. Thank you.
Thank you, Christina.
Hi, good afternoon. I'm Hua Dong from Brunel Design School, Director of Brunel Design Research Center, where we focus on inclusion, technology, and sustainability. Natural sciences are concerned with how things are. Social scientists tend to focus on human behaviors and social structures. And design is concerned with how things ought to be. So design is a course aimed to changing existing situations into preferred ones. Design research often aimed to improve the design process and ultimately improve the design outcomes. Design research in aging and Brunel focuses on 4 areas: inclusion, sustainability, well-being, and technology. Now I'm going to give you 3 ongoing projects to illustrate our research in aging. The first one is about climate change. The research question is how to engage older adults, especially the ethnic minorities in the UK, into the climate discourse so that they can have their voice and share their practice. We engaged the local people, old people, and older Chinese migrants in our study. We use walk-in interviews, co-creation workshops with designers and old people, and also focus groups facilitated by visual aids, really to encourage people to share their stories. What we found out is net zero is not liked as a terminology by old adults. They prefer to talk about climate change. So we've actually produced a policy brief on empowering old adults for climate action. Some of the visual aids we used are displayed next to the room. You are welcome to have a look. The second case study is about robots. The research question is how to meaningfully interpret and design into companionship into future robots. We found old people struggled with explaining the abstract such as companionship and their emotions. So we summarized 11 companionship between human and human and listed 44 attributes. And we use this list to engage old people to discuss about companionship. We also developed 5 prototypes from 15 centimeters to 1 meter and 10 centimeters, different size, different face and mobility features to invite older people to interact with them. What we find is a lot of older people initially, they don't want robots, but once they start to see them and interact with them, they change ideas. I might want to have one. One of the interesting findings from that is also how to translate human relationships into human-robots relationships. We are in the currently we are translating all our findings into a product design specification to facilitate future designers to design, incorporate these companionship, old people's needs on functional aspect and emotional aspects into future robots design. The third case study is about physical activity. We have developed an intervention model to motivate old people to participate in physical activity, which is the most effective, low-cost, and sustainable solution for healthy aging. So we engaged more than 100 people aged 65 plus into this study. Again, there are some interesting findings. People who tend to keep exercise after retirement, they've already had this habit before retirement. Yeah. So that actually inspired us to think about proactive aging. So how to form good habits. Don't think I will have time to do that after retirement. We all should form a good habit from now on. So those are the 3 case studies which illustrate our ongoing research. I would like to take this opportunity to thank the Brunel Old People's Reference Group, org. They supported all of our projects, and some of the members also proposed good ideas for our design students, and some were taken by our students to develop into prototypes. And currently, they are on show. I've brought some of the brochures made in Brunel show, currently happening in Brunel Design School until this Saturday. So come to see our students' work.
Shameless project.
Thank you very much.
That's great. So there's a real range of different research there. We have time for 2 or 3 questions. Do we have a microphone?
Where's Sam?
Oh, where's it? We've lost that. Do you want to? I don't know where the microphone.
Yeah.
Is there a microphone there?
Yeah.
Yeah, go for it.
We know you. Yeah.
I'm a 25-year-old woman trapped in a 71-year-old body. And that's how it feels
Yes.
when you're getting older, that you still feel young inside.
Yes.
But your body and the bathroom mirror reminds you that you're not. So I am incredibly grateful to the Borg. We have Brunel University in the London Borough of Hillingdon, basically on our doorstep, and it is amazing the work that goes on. A multidisciplinary approach to understanding ageing, which is giving us hope that we can adapt in a more healthier way to the ageing process. It's great that we get young and old coming together to learn and share, and it is just amazing, and it has given me a new lease of life, as I am a retired graduate nurse and midwife, so it's good to get that reconnection to the academic world as well. So thank you for creating Borg.
Thank you, Margaret. Anyone want to comment? Or I think Marjorie said it all.
Yeah, we agree. No,
Second.
I think it's, I mean, I think I'd give credit. I can't take any credit for it. It was my colleagues, Mary and Eleanor, who created it. And I've just managed by, creative accounting to keep it going. But I think we're all convinced of how important these groups are. And I think it's beholden upon of us in the social sciences and those of us in leadership positions that although we live in difficult times, groups like Borg are as essential to us having a good research environment and being able to get competitive grants and good publications as it is for people in Joe's group to have microscopes and stuff. So I think because it isn't a physical object, you know, there isn't a thing, here's a microscope I bought for you, it's sometimes difficult to convince people that it's an important thing to support. So thank you very much. And we love you.
Yeah, we do.
Borg is brilliant.
Borg is brilliant. I think that's and actually there is a stand in the exhibition area, and now Elmar Carl is leading it, having taken over from Eleanor, and is doing a fabulous job. So there you are. It's a love-in time.
I have a very quick question. We've got about a minute.
I don't know about that, whether it'd be quick. But people have unconscious biases and prejudices.
Yeah.
And there are widespread worries that artificial intelligence is incorporating all that, the adverse ones, and the unpleasant prejudices and biases. So presumably the robots for human companionship will be led by artificial intelligence. How are you going to design out the harmful consequences of what I've just said? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Good question. Yes, bias can be amplified by AI, but we are adopting a co-creation process. So we are developing these design specifications with old people. And what we find interesting is old people, when they talk about companionship robot, they wanted it to have some functional aspect as well, not only emotional companionship. So both functional and emotional companionship will be translated and co-created between old people and designers.
Brilliant. Okay, I'm sorry because I'd like to thank all of our panellists, our speakers, and the audience. Thank you very much.